In the winter of 1721, the pirate ship Royal Fortune drifted through a dead calm off the coast of West Africa. No wind, no waves. The ocean stretched flat as glass in every direction, and the only sound was the slow creak of timber expanding in the heat. Captain Bartholomew Roberts, the most successful pirate in history, a man who had captured over 400 ships, walked below deck and found something that terrified him more than any British warship ever had. His crew wasn't fighting. They weren't gambling. They weren't drunk. They were sitting in total silence. Dozens of armed, dangerous men staring at nothing, saying nothing, doing nothing. And Roberts knew exactly what that silence meant. We think of pirates as men who feared cannonballs and cutlasses, storms and shipwrecks. Hollywood taught us that the ocean's fury was a pirate's greatest enemy. Waves crashing over the bow, lightning splitting the mast, crews screaming into the wind. But the real pirates of the Golden Age knew something that no movie has ever shown you. The most dangerous thing on a pirate ship wasn't noise. It was the absence of it. Silence killed more pirate crews than the Royal Navy ever did. Not through violence, through something far worse. Through the slow, invisible destruction of the human mind trapped in a world with nothing to see, nothing to hear, and nothing to do. When the wind stopped and the sea went flat, pirate ships didn't just lose speed. They lost sanity. Men who had laughed in the face of cannon fire began seeing things that weren't there. Crews that had held together through hurricane-force winds turned on each other over imagined insults. Captains who had outsmarted entire naval fleets found themselves unable to stop their own men from tearing the ship apart from the inside. The pirates had a name for it. They called it the Doldrums, and they built an entire hidden system of rules specifically designed to survive it. Rules that no history book ever talks about. The Doldrums aren't a myth. They're a real place. A belt of ocean straddling the equator where the trade winds from the north and the trade winds from the south cancel each other out, creating a zone of dead air that can stretch for hundreds of miles. Sailors called it the Intertropical Convergence Zone. But pirates had a simpler name. They called it the Graveyard of Ambition. Every pirate captain who sailed between the Caribbean and the West African coast knew the Doldrums were waiting. The Atlantic crossing demanded it. You couldn't reach the rich hunting grounds off the Gold Coast without passing through this invisible trap. And once you entered, there was no guarantee of when you'd leave. Some ships passed through in a day. Others sat motionless for weeks. In 1715, the pirate sloop Witta under Captain Samuel Bellamy was becalmed for 19 straight days in the Doldrums. 19 days of nothing. No wind, no current, no change. Just a flat white sky pressing down on a flat gray sea while 140 men slowly lost their ability to think clearly. The human brain isn't built for perfect stillness. Modern psychology calls it sensory deprivation. When the brain receives no meaningful input from its environment, it begins manufacturing its own. Hallucinations, paranoia, irrational rage, time distortion. In controlled experiments, subjects placed in perfectly quiet, featureless rooms begin experiencing psychological breakdown within 48 hours. Now imagine that room is a wooden ship. Imagine it's 110 degrees below deck. Imagine you're surrounded by armed men who are experiencing the same breakdown you are. And imagine there is no door. That was life in the Doldrums. The Caribbean pirates of the early 18th century didn't have a word for psychology. They didn't understand neuroscience, but they understood the pattern. Every captain who had survived a Doldrums crossing knew the timeline. Day 1 through 3, the crew gets restless. Day 4 through 7, arguments start over nothing. Day 8 through 12, men stop sleeping or sleep too much. After 2 weeks, someone draws a weapon. After 3 weeks, someone dies. The smartest captains didn't wait for the pattern to play out. They built systems to prevent it. Here's where it gets interesting. The Pirate Code, those famous articles every crew signed before sailing, contained rules that seem bizarre until you understand the Doldrums. Bartholomew Roberts' code required every pirate ship to carry at least 2 musicians. Not as entertainment, as medical equipment. Article 7 of Roberts' code stated that the musicians were to have rest on the Sabbath day only. Every other day they played. Not when they felt like it. Not when the captain asked. Every single day. Rain or shine. Battle or calm. Think about that. A pirate captain who had captured 400 ships and commanded fleets of warships considered a fiddler and a drummer as essential as gunpowder. Because Roberts had crossed the Doldrums. He'd seen what silence did, and he knew that a steady rhythm, a drumbeat, a fiddle tune, even a badly sung shanty, was the difference between a functioning crew and a floating massacre. But music was only the first defense. Captain Edward Teach, Blackbeard himself, employed a technique during comms that historians long dismissed as sadistic entertainment. He would take his crew below deck, seal the hatches, and light pots of brimstone and sulfur until the hold filled with choking, burning smoke. The crew would endure it as long as they could, coughing, gasping, eyes streaming, competing to see who could last the longest. Historians called it a dominance ritual, a display of Blackbeard's cruelty. But look at it through the lens of the Doldrums and it makes perfect sense. It was sensory shock therapy. When men had spent days feeling nothing, seeing nothing, hearing nothing but the creak of timber, Blackbeard forced their nervous systems back online. Pain, heat, competition, adrenaline. Every sensation the Doldrums had stolen, the Sulfur game gave back in 60 seconds. Consider this. Modern military training uses almost identical techniques. Navy SEAL candidates are subjected to extreme cold, sleep deprivation, and controlled stress specifically to reset the brain's response systems during periods of enforced inactivity. Blackbeard invented the same principle 300 years earlier on the deck of a pirate ship, and we called him a madman for it. The pirates weren't performing rituals. They were practicing survival psychology without knowing the science behind it. The deeper you look, the more systems you find. Pirates didn't just use music and sulfur games. They built entire daily routines specifically designed for comms. Captain Charles Vane, who terrorized the Caribbean between 1718 and 1719, kept a detailed logbook that survived his capture and trial in Jamaica. In that logbook, Vane documented what he called standing orders for still water. Every day the ship was becalmed. The crew followed a mandatory schedule. Morning inspections of every weapon on board. Afternoon repairs to sails, rigging, and hull even when nothing was broken. Evening competitions in marksmanship, knife throwing, and wrestling on the main deck. Every hour of every day was filled. Not because the work was necessary, because the emptiness was lethal. Vane's logbook recorded a specific incident from August 1718. His pirate sloop, the Ranger, was becalmed for 11 days in the Windward Passage between Cuba and Hispaniola. On day 6, a pirate crew member named James Dalton began talking to someone who wasn't there. He carried on full conversations with an invisible companion, answering questions nobody asked, laughing at jokes nobody told. By day 8, 2 more pirate crew members were showing the same behavior. Vane didn't punish them. Instead, he ordered the entire crew to disassemble and reassemble every cannon on the pirate ship. All 12 guns, taken apart bolt by bolt, cleaned, greased, reassembled, and test-aimed. The process took 14 hours. By the time it was finished, Dalton had stopped talking to the invisible man. His brain had been given something real to process, but not every captain understood the pattern. In 1722, a pirate captain named George Lowther was becalmed off the coast of Brazil for 23 days. Lowther had no standing orders for comms, no musicians, no structured activities. His pirate ship, the Happy Delivery, perhaps the most ironic name in maritime history, descended into complete psychological collapse. 4 men attacked each other with carpentry tools over an argument about the color of the sky. 2 pirate crew members jumped overboard and tried to swim to a horizon that never got closer. 1 man locked himself in the powder magazine and threatened to ignite it, choosing to destroy the entire pirate ship rather than endure another hour of stillness. Lowther survived. Barely. When the wind finally returned, he had lost 9 men. Not to battle, not to disease, but to silence. He spent the rest of his short career making sure every comm had a plan. He learned the lesson every successful pirate captain eventually learned. You don't fight the Doldrums with courage. You fight them with structure. Fill every minute. Occupy every mind. Give the brain something, anything, to process, or the brain will create its own nightmares. The Doldrums didn't just shape how pirates survived comms. They shaped the entire pirate code itself. When historians look at the famous articles signed by pirate crews, they see rules about treasure division, combat readiness, and punishment for desertion. What they miss is how many of those rules exist specifically because of what silence did to men at sea. The mandatory musicians. The prohibition on gambling, because card games created debts that became murder motives when minds were already fractured. The structured watch rotations that kept men moving even when there was nothing to watch for. The injury compensation that prevented wounded men from sinking into despair during long comms when they had nothing but pain and empty hours. The rule that every quarrel had to wait until the crew reached shore, because a quarrel in the Doldrums didn't stay a quarrel. It became an execution. Every one of these rules was a wall built against silence. And the captains who enforced them, Roberts, Vane, Teach, weren't just good leaders. They were accidental psychologists who discovered through trial and blood what modern science took another 3 centuries to prove. That the human mind requires input to function. That isolation doesn't just make people uncomfortable. It makes them dangerous. That the absence of stimulation is not peace. It is a slow-acting poison that turns rational men into something unrecognizable. The navies of Britain and France lost more sailors to psychological collapse during comms than they ever admitted in their official logs. They had no systems for it, no standing orders, no musicians required by code. They let their men sit in silence and called whatever happened next a mystery of the sea. The pirates knew better. The outcasts knew better. The men the world called savages built a system for protecting the human mind before the civilized world even admitted the human mind could break. And maybe that's the real lesson hiding inside every pirate code ever written. We don't fear what can destroy our bodies. We fear what can destroy our minds. The pirates understood that storms are loud and terrifying, but you can fight a storm. You can grab a rope, hold on, and scream into the wind. Silence gives you nothing to grab, nothing to fight, nothing to scream at. And that is why the most dangerous men who ever sailed the ocean feared a quiet day more than a hurricane. If you want to hear more stories about the hidden systems that history forgot, subscribe so you don't miss the next one.